All right, so here we have all of the low poly geo isolated. Everything has individual UVs, but we need to do a layout to put everything on one, basically one texture sheet. And I've also organized my outliner so that I have everything in the high-low pairs. And you can just, again, move these things around by selecting it and using the middle mouse button to drag it wherever you want it to ultimately be. So we need to select all the low poly geo here, and we need to go to Modify, Freeze Transformations. And the reason that we need to do this is because when it lays out the UVs, it will actually look at the transform information. Like if we have a scale on something, like for instance, if this was like 0.1, then in the UVs, it's going to make this 10 times bigger because it thinks it's being scaled down. So we just want to make sure that we don't have anything in the transforms that might be throwing off how the UV layout is, particularly how the texel density thing is operating. So I'm going to hop over to UV editor. So here's all this stuff. I'm going to go ahead and just do we'll hit shift and go to the layout options. So what I want here is to preserve the 3D ratios. That's going to basically make sure that everything has the same texel density based on how big it is, which is why if you've got something happening here in your transforms, particularly with the scale, it can throw that off. So 2048 is fine, 16 on that is fine. I think everything else is totally cool the way it is. All right, so I mentioned earlier, I believe, that I wanted to actually reduce the relative size of this lower set of faces here because we're probably never going to see them. And if we are going to see them, there isn't anything down there that we need to support in terms of like highly detailed high poly geometry or anything like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and select those here in world space. And let's see, maybe I'll just grab this one piece because then we can keep these little bevels there. Actually, no, that's all flat. Let's just grab it. Okay, so I am going to, maybe the best way to do this would be with just grabbing the edges. It's a little bit more work, but I think it'll be fine. Okay, so let's do a cut on that. And scoot it out of the way. And I just want to make sure that these are no longer welded, so they can all be laid out however they need to be laid out. And now I'm just going to shrink this thing down. Something like that. Significantly smaller, but not invisible. Like we don't want to take it down to a tiny pixel because we still need to have enough texel density to kind of support this edge here. But yeah, it's not going to require a whole lot. Okay, let's go ahead and show all of the stuff that we hid there. Actually, I didn't hide it, I just deselected it. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and select everything. Even though I pulled that off, we need to make sure that it's still selected. And now I am going to set this to preserve UV ratios. So what that means ideally is it's going to keep all this stuff about the same, except it's going to accommodate for having all this extra space by making everything a tiny bit bigger. So yeah, let's just see what happens with this. We'll hit apply. All right, it rescaled it up to its original size. I have seen this behavior occasionally, and I'm not entirely sure what's going on with it. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to leave this one off, just deselected, grab all of these, and then I guess we can just set this back to 3D ratios and hit apply. And now I can grab this and we'll just kind of fit it in somewhere. So hopefully we've got a little bit more texel density. Now what's going on here is it's not going to go any bigger. Like if it scaled this all the way to that edge, that's as big as it'll go. So with these things being there, it's preventing it from going a little bit larger. So I'm just going to go ahead and rotate these. I think there might be an easy way to do it in the tools. So we'll go to Show UV Toolkit. And then in transform, we can just do a flip in here somewhere. There we go. So those can live up here pretty easily, which means all the stuff can expand out a bit. I'm just going to scoot this one out of the way so it doesn't mess anything up. And we can try another layout UVs here. So we got a little bit bigger, which is great. And now, yeah, I just scoot this in. Just make sure it's like not overlapping with anything. We get a little bit of a gap. That's our 16 pixel gap right there. And so we just want to make sure it's lined up. And so once we're here, it's like, okay, well, we may as well kind of fill it up a little bit because we're not going to use that space anyway. All right. So that's probably going to be it for our UV layout. Just make sure everything makes sense in terms of the textile density, that there isn't any distortion anywhere. So all the squares will look nice and squarey. You can see the difference there between the top and the sides and the bottom, so that's a big savings. Cool. All right. So now what we need to do is assign all of this stuff to one material. So let's hop over here. And the reason we're doing this is we want to make sure that we only have one set of textures that we're generating in Substance Painter. So we'll just call this one like NES, whoops, NES, oh, my N's not working. NES controller material. Wonderful. All right, so we have the low poly pretty much ready to go. So now let's take a look at our high. So there is a way, and the newer versions of Painter, where you can actually use material assignment to control the material ID. So the material assignment in the source, like in this case Maya, but wherever we assign the materials to the high poly, like you could use that as a material ID mask. But I still feel safer doing this with vertex color because I know exactly how that system works. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our mesh display, and then we're going to go to apply color. And the idea here is not to match the colors that are actually in the high poly. The idea is we want to make this super easy for machine eyes to see. So we want to use values. We have for RGB values, you have 3 channels, red, green, and blue, and the possible range of values for each channel is 0 to 1. So what I like to do is make my first one, we're just going to make this like 100% red. So we'll hit apply. So that's going to be our white material. And then for the next one, we'll grab this and we'll go to green. And we'll hit apply. So what I'm doing here is each material that's unique. So for instance, I think I wanted to use that same white material for the red here. I'm sorry, for this little trim area. So we'll just set that back to red and hit apply. So now when I get this into Substance Painter, this area and this area will use the same white material, and that's fine. In fact, let me take a look at my reference here just to confirm that. Yeah, and I'm going to use it for this one as well. So just double click this guy and make it red. So now I can make one white material and it'll automatically be assigned here where it needs to go. All right, so I've got a black shiny material. So we'll make that one like yellow. So we'll select my little plus here and we'll hit apply. And then we've got these dull rubber ones, so we'll make that another color. And we just want to pick something that's very, very clear and distinct and different and easy for machine eyes to see. And then we've got our, whoops, it looks like I lost my little menu there. See if I can grab it back. So we'll use like a dark blue. Like you wouldn't want to put like a light blue next to a dark blue. You want to try to keep that stuff separate. Looks like these things are going to be that same red material, or that same red material ID. And then let's see, what am I missing? I'm missing, so we've got this red here. That's going to be like a, for the text, and also this stuff here. So let's find purple. I'll make all of this stuff purple. Beautiful, right? All right, and then finally the letters. And for the letters, I think I've used all of my colors here, so we'll just make one up. I don't think we have an orange yet. And then I'll just grab these guys here. back to our apply color menu and hit apply. All right, so if I hop into object mode, that's what we're looking at for our material IDs. And it looks amazing and very, very strange, but it's going to make a lot of sense once we get this into Substance Painter. So, all right, in the next video, we're going to go ahead and export this into Painter and set up the material ID masks and maybe do a quick texture pass on it.